Commander Rajesh Patel stood at the observation deck of the U.S. Vigilant, his eyes fixed on the peculiar readings displayed on the ancient radar system he'd insisted on keeping operational. While other naval vessels had completely converted to digital systems, Patel maintained what his crew jokingly called his vintage collection. Tonight, that decision would prove invaluable. "Sir, the digital systems show all clear," Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka reported, her voice steady despite the late hour. "Nothing unusual in any sector." Patel nodded slowly, his attention still fixed on the ghostly green sweep of the analog radar. There, another blip, too consistent to be space debris, too irregular to be a satellite. "They think we can't see them," he murmured, more to himself than to his lieutenant. "Sir," Tanaka moved closer, squinting at the old display. "Look here," Patel pointed to the faint signal. "Every 18 minutes, same position, same signal strength. They're using some kind of advanced cloaking technology, but they didn't account for older systems. They're watching us, Lieutenant. High above Earth's atmosphere, aboard the Galactic scout ship Nexus, First Observer Zarnval reviewed the latest planetary assessment data with growing frustration. "Impossible," he muttered, his crystalline fingers tapping rapidly on the holoscreen. "A civilization this primitive shouldn't be able to maintain global stability without central AI governance." His second-in-command, Kit Wren, floated nearby, her translucent form shifting in the artificial gravity. "Perhaps our assessment protocols are flawed," she suggested carefully. "This is the third anomaly we've detected. The protocols are perfect," Zarnval snapped. "They've been refined across 10,000 worlds. These humans," he paused, studying the scrolling data, "they're managing complex global systems with primitive computational power. Their largest networks run on basic binary code. They still use fossil fuels, for void's sake. Yet they persist," Kit Wren noted. "They adapt, they survive. Perhaps that's worth studying." Back on Earth, Patel had called an emergency meeting with his most trusted officers. In a small conference room deep within the Vigilant, he laid out his findings. "They're testing us," he explained, pointing to a series of photographs and radar readings spread across the table. "These vessels, and yes, I'm certain they're vessels, have been positioned at key points around our planet for at least 3 months. They're using technology far beyond our current capabilities, but they've made one crucial mistake." Captain Maria Rodriguez, the ship's tactical officer, leaned forward. "They didn't consider our older technology might detect them." "Exactly," Patel confirmed. "Their cloaking technology seems designed to fool modern digital systems. They probably assumed we have completely abandoned analog systems by now." "Most nations have." "But why?" Tanaka asked, studying the patterns Patel had documented. "Why observe us this way?" "Because they're assessing us," Rodriguez answered, her expression grim. "And I'm betting they're not just here for scientific curiosity." Patel nodded. "I've cross-referenced these sightings with global incidents over the past 3 months. Every major power grid failure, every satellite malfunction, every mysterious computer system crash. They all correspond with these vessels changing position. They're testing our infrastructure," Tanaka realized, her eyes widening, "probing for weaknesses, and probably coming to some very wrong conclusions," Rodriguez added with a slight smile. "They see our technology as primitive, so they assume we are tooth-hats our advantage," Patel said firmly. "They're watching our digital systems, our satellites, our power grids, but they're missing something fundamental about human nature." He paused, looking each officer in the eye. "We don't need advanced technology to be dangerous. We've survived and thrived for thousands of years because we can adapt, improvise, and overcome." In orbit, Zarnval was reaching a decision. "Prepare the final assessment report," he ordered Kit Wren. "Classification: primitive pre-industrial species, technology level 2. Recommended action: immediate integration into the Empire's protection protocol." Kit Wren hesitated. Sir, with respect, there are anomalies in the data that suggest. The data is clear, Zarnval interrupted. Their most advanced weapon systems are based on chemical propulsion. Their global communication network still uses copper wires in many places. They have no unified planetary defense system. The assessment protocols are absolute. As he spoke, on the Vigilant's ancient radar screen, another blip appeared right on schedule. But this time, Patel and his crew were ready. They had begun preparing Earth's response, not with advanced technology, but with the kind of ingenuity that had helped humanity survive countless challenges throughout its history. Send the message to command, Patel ordered Tanaka. But use the old channels only. Morse code, analog signals, physical couriers when necessary. Tell them we know they're here, and we know what they're doing. But most importantly, he smiled slightly. Tell them to keep letting the aliens think they haven't been detected. Let them underestimate us. It's time to show them why humanity has survived every challenge we've ever faced. The first pieces of Earth's defense were already being put into motion, but they weren't the kind of defenses the aliens would think to look for. They were searching for missile silos, laser arrays, and antimatter weapons. Instead, humanity would show them something far more dangerous: human ingenuity unleashed. The old warehouse on the outskirts of Bangalore looked abandoned, its exterior deliberately weathered and unremarkable. Inside, however, Dr. Priya Nair worked with intense focus, her hand steady as she modified what appeared to be ordinary shortwave radio equipment. Around her, dozens of similar stations were being assembled by a team of engineers who had been carefully selected for their expertise in obsolete technologies. "How's the prototype coming along?" a voice asked from behind her. Priya turned to see Thomas O'Reilly, the Irish communications expert who'd been sent by Commander Patel's growing network of resistance planners. "See for yourself," she replied, flicking the switch on her modified radio set. The device hummed to life, but instead of broadcasting on normal frequencies, it began emitting a pattern of signals that appeared completely random to modern scanning equipment. "Beautiful," Thomas breathed, watching the pattern on an old oscilloscope. "They'll be looking for quantum encryption, for AI-driven communication protocols. But this is old school," Priya finished with a smile. "Frequency-hopping radio, based on mechanical rotors. Like what they used in World War II, but with a few modern tweaks. No computers, no digital signatures, just pure physics and mathematics." High above Earth, aboard the Galactic scout ship Nexus, First Observer Zarnval was growing increasingly confident in his assessment. "Look at these readings," he commanded Kit Wren, displaying a holographic map of Earth's communications infrastructure. Their most sophisticated networks still rely on physical transmission lines. Primitive fiber optics, copper cables. They haven't even achieved basic quantum entanglement communication. Kit Wren studied the display with less certainty. "Sir, I've been analyzing their historical records. These humans have a remarkable pattern of technological leaps that don't follow standard development protocols. They often achieve complex goals using surprisingly simple methods. Simple methods are precisely why they need our guidance," Zarnval dismissed. "The Empire will show them true efficiency." Meanwhile, in the Siberian wilderness, another piece of humanity's response was taking shape. Former Russian Special Forces operator Nikolai Volkov led a team training civilians in what he called ghost warfare, techniques that required no advanced technology at all. "Technology can fail," he explained to his diverse group of students who had come from dozens of countries. "But these skills," he tapped his temple, "these never fail. Navigation by stars, tracking without devices, silent communication through environmental signs. These are the things our ancestors used to survive, and these are the things that will help us survive again." In orbit, Kit Wren was examining an anomaly in their scanning data. "Sir, I'm detecting unusual patterns in their radio spectrum usage. Some frequencies show activity that doesn't match any known communication protocols. Probably atmospheric interference," Zarnval replied dismissively. Their primitive broadcasting methods are susceptible to all sorts of natural disruption. But it wasn't interference. Across the globe, a network was forming, using technologies and methods so basic that the aliens' advanced scanning systems literally couldn't comprehend them. In the Australian outback, Aboriginal guides were teaching others how to navigate vast distances without any electronic equipment. In the Amazon, indigenous trackers were sharing centuries-old methods of moving unseen through any terrain. Commander Patel coordinated it all from the U.S. Vigilant, using Praya's modified radio network. The beauty of it, he explained to his officers, is that they're looking for wrong things. They expect resistance to look like missile launches, like cyber attacks, like energy weapons. They're not looking for people learning to use the stars to navigate, or how to communicate using methods that predate electricity. In a remote Andean facility, Dr. Isabella Santos was putting the finishing touches on what she called the RetroTech initiative. Her team had created working computers using mechanical components, like the earliest computing machines, but with modern engineering knowledge applied to their construction. They were slower than digital computers, but they were completely immune to electronic interference or digital attacks. The aliens think we're primitive because we still use some analog technology alongside our digital systems, she explained to a visiting military attaché. But what they don't understand is that we keep these old methods alive, not because we have to, but because we choose to, because we understand something they don't. Redundancy equals survival. As the preparations continued, humanity's response took on an almost organic quality. Instead of building new weapons, they were rediscovering old skills. Instead of trying to match the aliens' technology, they were finding ways to operate completely outside of it. In Africa, traditional drum communications were being integrated into the global warning network. In the Pacific, ancient navigational techniques using wave patterns and bird movements were being taught to new generations. Each skill, each technique, was another thread in a web that the aliens' sensors couldn't detect. We're ready for Phase 2, Patil announced to his global network of coordinators, using Praya's secure radio system. Remember, let them think their jamming technology is working. Let them think they've blinded us. Everything depends on maintaining that illusion. As his message went out, carried by a combination of modified shortwave signals, drum beats, light signals, and human messengers, Zarnval was making his final preparations aboard the Nexus. The integration fleet will arrive within their lunar orbit in exactly 30 rotations, he announced to his crew. Our assessment shows they have no capability to detect or resist our arrival. Their primitive technology will be easily suppressed, and their integration into the Empire will proceed according to standard protocols. Kit Wren watched the humans' seemingly chaotic movements on their monitoring screens, a nagging doubt still tugging at her mind. Something about their behavior didn't match any known pattern of a pre-integration species, but she kept her concerns to herself, knowing Zarnval wouldn't listen. On Earth, Patil stood at his old radar display, watching the alien ships adjust their positions. They think they're watching us, he murmured. But we're the ones really watching them. And we'll be ready. The pieces were in place. Humanity's response would not come in the form of advanced weapons or sophisticated technology. It would come in the form of millions of people, armed with knowledge both ancient and new, ready to show the aliens why humanity had survived every challenge it had ever faced. They were about to learn that true intelligence isn't measured by the sophistication of your technology, but by your ability to adapt and overcome, no matter the odds. The integration fleet's arrival was meant to be spectacular, a show of overwhelming technological superiority designed to awe the primitive humans into immediate submission. Instead, as the massive ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, they encountered something unprecedented: nothing. Admiral Xenvor stood on the bridge of the Imperial command ship Dominion, his crystalline form shifting in confusion as he studied the tactical displays. "Where is their response?" he demanded. "There should be panic, chaos, attempts at resistance. The major cities below continued their normal activities. Traffic flowed, lights burned, and humans went about their daily routines as if a fleet of advanced alien warships wasn't hovering above them. First observer Zarnval, Senvor called to the scout commander. "Explain this behavior. Your reports indicated they would be overwhelmed by our mere presence." Zarnval's projection flickered uncertainly. "Their technological level makes it impossible for them to coordinate any meaningful response, Admiral. They must be in denial." Deep underground in what used to be an old nuclear bunker outside of Moscow, Commander Patel sat with representatives from every major nation on Earth. The room was lit by old-fashioned oil lamps, and the only sounds were the scratch of pencils on paper and the quiet clicking of mechanical calculators. "Status reports," Patil asked, his voice barely above a whisper, though it wasn't necessary. The bunker was thoroughly soundproofed using methods developed during the Cold War. Pioneer consulted a series of hand-drawn charts. "Our Retrotech network is fully operational. They're trying to jam all electronic communications, just as we expected. They haven't noticed that we're not using any." Isabella Santos added, "The mechanical computers are tracking their ship movements. Their patterns are surprisingly predictable. They rely entirely on their technology for tactical decisions." Above ground, the alien fleet began their standard integration protocol. Massive electromagnetic pulses swept across continents, designed to disable all electronic infrastructure. Power grids flickered and died, satellites went dark, and digital communications ceased. Admiral Xenvor allowed himself a satisfied smile. "Begin Phase 2. Deploy the compliance drones." Thousands of sleek, automated drones descended from the fleet, their programming optimized through millennia of successful planetary integrations. They were designed to locate and neutralize any potential resistance leadership. But something was wrong. "Sir," one of Senvor's officers called out, their crystalline form pulsing with confusion. "The drones. They can't find any command centers. No military headquarters, no government leadership bunkers, no strategic communication hubs. Nothing." In the Moscow bunker, Nikolai Volkov gave his report next. "The aliens are searching for infrastructure that doesn't exist anymore. We've moved everything important to places they'd never think to look." He pointed to a hand-drawn map showing hundreds of small dots across the globe. "Every one of these points is a center of resistance, but they're not what the aliens expect. They're looking for military bases, for hidden bunkers full of technology. Instead, Patel finished with a grim smile, we're running our resistance from places their sensors would classify as primitive or abandoned. Monasteries in Tibet, Aboriginal camps in the outback, Native American reservations, places where people have lived for centuries without depending on modern technology. The alien drones continued their futile search patterns, their advanced sensors unable to distinguish between actual primitive conditions and carefully crafted deceptions. On the Dominion, frustration was mounting. How are they coordinating? Senvor demanded. We've disabled all their communication systems. Kit Wren, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. Sir, I believe we may have made a serious miscalculation. Look at these energy readings from the planet's surface. The display showed countless tiny heat signatures, moving in patterns that made no sense to the aliens' tactical computers. Humans were moving, coordinating, communicating, but without using any technology that the aliens could detect or disrupt. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous guides led groups of resistance fighters through paths that no satellite could detect. In the mountains of Nepal, monks used ancient mirror signals to relay messages across valleys. Along the coasts of Pacific Islands, navigators read wave patterns to coordinate maritime movements that appeared completely random to alien observers. Impossible, Zarnval whispered, watching as his carefully constructed assessment of human capabilities crumbled. Their technology level. They shouldn't be capable of this level of organization without central control systems. That was when the first counterstrike began, but not in any way the aliens could have predicted. Their ship's sensors began reporting bizarre anomalies. False readings caused by simple heat sources placed in precise patterns, reflecting arrangements that had been calculated on Isabella's mechanical computers. The alien fleet's automated defense systems, programmed to react to technological threats, began firing at shadows and echoes, wasting energy and resources on non-existent targets. "Stop," Senvor commanded as his ship's artificial intelligence systems became increasingly confused. "Override the automated responses." But the damage was done. The fleet's highly integrated defense network, designed to work in perfect technological harmony, had been thrown into chaos by the simplest of human tricks: fire, mirrors, and mathematical precision. In the Moscow bunker, Patil allowed himself a small smile as reports came in via drum signals, light flashes, and human runners. "They still think we're primitive," he said quietly. "They still don't understand. We're not failing to use advanced technology. We're choosing not to." The alien fleet hung in the sky, their superior technology suddenly seeming less decisive as they faced an enemy that had simply stepped outside their technological framework entirely. They had come expecting to find a primitive species dependent on crude technology. Instead, they found something far more dangerous: humans who knew how to live and fight without any technology at all. And they were about to learn just how dangerous such humans could be. The fourth day of the invasion brought Admiral Senvor's first real crisis. His fleet's advanced AI systems were reporting complete tactical chaos. Thousands of small, uncoordinated human movements that somehow, impossibly, added up to a coordinated resistance that his computers couldn't predict or counter. "How are they doing this?" he demanded, his crystalline form flickering with barely contained rage. The holographic displays showed heat signatures moving across Earth's surface in patterns that defied all tactical logic, yet achieved results that couldn't be dismissed as random. In the Sahara Desert, a Americanate led a group of Tuareg nomads who had turned their generations-old desert survival skills into a weapon. They created false thermal signatures that confused alien sensors, leading automated defense systems to waste energy and resources on mirages. "Our ancestors crossed these sands for thousands of years without computers," she explained to the international group she was training. "We know how to read the wind, the stars, the patterns of the dunes. No technology can match that knowledge." Meanwhile, in the Pacific, Captain Lailani Kaleni's network of traditional navigators had turned the ocean itself into an invisible highway. Using nothing but their knowledge of wave patterns, star positions, and marine life behavior, they coordinated a maritime resistance that alien sensors simply couldn't track. Their mistake, Lailani explained to her crew as they guided their seemingly primitive fishing boat through a complex pattern, is thinking that technology is the only way to achieve precision. "Our ancestors navigated these waters with perfect accuracy long before the first compass was invented." In the Moscow bunker, Commander Patil received their reports via a combination of methods that would have seemed comically primitive to the aliens if they had even been able to detect them. Drum signals, smoke patterns, and human messengers carried information across a global network that was invisible to advanced surveillance. "They're still looking for a traditional military response," Pryor reported, reviewing hand-drawn maps updated by runners from around the world. "Their ships are positioned to counter missile launches, electromagnetic pulses, or cyber attacks. They're waiting for us to try to fight technology with technology. And that's exactly what we won't do," Patil confirmed, studying the patterns of alien ship movements that Isabella's mechanical computers had decoded. "Every time their systems detect a potential technological threat, they respond according to standard protocols. But when faced with non-technological solutions, they don't know how to respond," Isabella finished. "Their tactical systems are designed to counter other advanced civilizations. They have no protocols for dealing with solutions that their technology doesn't even register as threats." Aboard the Dominion, Kit Wren was beginning to understand their fundamental error. "Sir," she addressed Admiral Senvor, "I believe we need to reassess our basic assumptions about human capabilities. Their technological level is primitive, Senvor insisted, but with less certainty than before. Our scans confirmed it. Yes, Kit Wren agreed. Their technology is primitive by our standards, but their ability to operate without technology, that's something our scans never thought to measure. As if to emphasize her point, another alien drone squadron reported complete mission failure. They had been tasked with locating human resistance leaders, but their advanced sensors found nothing but scattered groups of humans engaged in seemingly primitive activities: farming, fishing, traveling on foot or horseback. The drone's AI couldn't comprehend that these primitive activities were actually part of a sophisticated resistance network. A farmer tilling his field in a particular pattern was transmitting messages visible only from certain angles. Fishing boats moving in traditional formations were coordinating military movements. People walking on ancient paths were carrying information in their heads rather than in any technology that could be detected or intercepted. In the Andes Mountains, Dr. Isabella Santos had established another operations center in an ancient Incan temple. Her mechanical computers, built using principles that predated electronics, continued to process and analyze alien ship movements. The calculations were slower than digital computers, but they were completely immune to alien interference. They thought disabling our power grid would blind us, she explained to a group of new recruits. They never considered that we might have ways of calculating orbital mechanics without electricity. The aliens' frustration reached new heights when they attempted to deploy their most sophisticated weapons, autonomous combat units designed to identify and neutralize any technological threat. The robots landed in human cities, their sensors primed to detect and counter everything from primitive firearms to theoretical energy weapons. Instead, they found themselves facing tactics that their advanced combat algorithms couldn't process. Humans using mirror arrays to blind their optical sensors, simple smoke patterns that confused their atmospheric analyzers, sonic disruptions created by nothing more complex than carefully positioned wind instruments. This is unprecedented, Zarnval admitted, watching another squadron of combat units report complete mission failure. Their resistance, it's like fighting shadows. Every time we adapt our technology to counter one primitive method, they switch to another that's even more basic. In the Moscow bunker, Paddle received word that the aliens were finally beginning to show signs of genuine confusion. Their ship movements were becoming less coordinated, their responses to human activities more erratic. They're starting to realize, he told his assembled commanders, that they're not fighting our technology. They're fighting human ingenuity itself, and that's a force their computers can't quantify. Nikolai Volkov's global network of trained operatives continued to move invisibly across the planet, using skills that had been passed down through generations. They navigated by stars, communicated through ancient methods, and coordinated resistance activities in ways that no artificial intelligence could predict. This is why we survive, Nikolai told his students as they practiced moving through dense forest without leaving traces that alien sensors could detect. Not because we have the best technology, but because we know how to live without it. That knowledge is our real strength. The alien fleet's perfect technological superiority had been transformed into a weakness. Their absolute dependence on advanced systems meant they had no framework for understanding or countering human adaptability. The final confrontation began not with an explosion or a digital attack, but with silence. Complete, absolute silence across every frequency the alien fleet monitored. Even the background noise of human civilization seemed to vanish. Admiral Xenvor stood rigid on his command deck, his crystalline form clouded with uncertainty. "What are they doing?" he demanded, but for the first time in his centuries of commanding integration fleets, he felt genuine fear. "Sir," Kit Wren reported, her voice tight with concern, "we've lost tracking on all human movements. Every signature we were monitoring has disappeared." In the depths of the Moscow bunker, Commander Patel gave the final order. Execute Operation Blackout. Across the globe, humans implemented the culmination of their preparation. Using knowledge gathered from indigenous cultures worldwide, millions of people simply vanished from the aliens' sophisticated detection systems. They moved through ancient tunnels, used natural formations to mask their heat signatures, and employed age-old techniques of concealment that no technology could penetrate. They're not just hiding, Isabella Santos explained as she monitored the mechanical computer's output. They're creating a vacuum that their technology can't process. The alien fleet's AI systems, programmed to analyze and respond to technological threats, found themselves in an impossible situation. Their sensors reported a complete absence of organized human activity, yet their security protocols detected clear signs of coordinated movement. The contradiction began to create cascade failures in their prediction algorithms. "Send in the ground forces," Senvor commanded desperately. "Full deployment. Find them." But as the alien troops descended to Earth's surface, they encountered a battlefield unlike any they had ever trained for. In the Amazon, they found their motion sensors jammed by nothing more sophisticated than specific patterns of bird calls. In the Himalayas, ancient prayer wheels turned in sequences that created interference patterns in their communication networks. Nikolai Volkov's trained operatives struck like ghosts, using purely mechanical traps and natural phenomena to disable the aliens' advanced weaponry. No electronics, no digital signatures, nothing that could be traced or countered by superior technology. The beauty of it, Pioneer commented as reports filtered in through their primitive but effective communication network, is that they've become slaves to their own technological superiority. They can't even conceive of solutions that don't involve advanced systems. The decisive moment came when Amara's desert warriors, coordinating with Lailani's maritime network, executed a series of movements that appeared completely random to alien sensors. But these movements, calculated on Isabella's mechanical computers, created a massive disruption in the fleet's tightly integrated defense network. Ship after ship began reporting system failures as their AI cores encountered paradoxes they couldn't resolve. Their tactical computers, trying to predict human behavior based on technological patterns, found themselves caught in logic loops as humans consistently acted outside of all projected possibilities. "Impossible," Zarnval whispered, watching as the mighty integration fleet began to lose cohesion. "Their primitive methods, they're defeating our most advanced systems." In orbit, Admiral Xenvor faced the ultimate humiliation. His fleet, the pride of the Empire's integration force, was being systematically paralyzed not by superior technology, but by its complete absence. The humans had found the one weakness in their perfect systems. They could not comprehend or counter actions that operated entirely outside their technological framework. "We must withdraw," Kit Wren urged, watching as more ships reported critical systems failures. "We cannot fight what we cannot understand." In the Moscow bunker, Paddle received the news with quiet satisfaction. Reports came in via drum beats, light signals, and human runners. The alien fleet was beginning to retreat. "They finally understand," he said to his assembled commanders. "Technology isn't the measure of intelligence or capability. It's just a tool. And sometimes the absence of a tool is more powerful than its presence." As the alien ships began their withdrawal, Amara's network sent one final message, transmitted through ancient methods across continents. "The stars belong to all who can reach them, not just those with the shiniest ships." Admiral Xenvor made his final log entry as the fleet limped away from Earth. Integration attempt failed. Species classification error. Humans are not primitive. They are something else entirely. Something our protocols never prepared us for. A species that has mastered both the use and deliberate non-use of technology. Recommend full revision of Empire's classification systems. On Earth, celebrations were subdued and thoughtful. Humanity had won not by matching the aliens' technological might, but by proving that true intelligence transcends technology. They had demonstrated that the ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to operate outside expected parameters was more valuable than any advanced system. Commander Paddle stood at his old radar display one last time, watching the alien fleet's retreat. "Remember this," he told his officers. "They came expecting to find primitives because we didn't match their technological standards. They left understanding that technology isn't what makes a species advanced. It's the wisdom to know when to use it, and when not to." In the years that followed, humanity would continue to advance technologically, but they never forgot the lesson of the invasion. Every new technology was balanced with the preservation of old knowledge and skills. Every advancement was matched with the maintenance of traditional methods, because they had learned what their would-be conquerors had not. True resilience comes not from having the most advanced tools, but from understanding that tools alone do not define intelligence or capability. The stars still beckoned, and humanity would reach them in time. But they would do so on their own terms, carrying with them both the latest innovations and the ancient wisdom that had saved them from extinction. In this balance, they had found something the Empire had never understood. True advancement comes not from rejecting the old for the new, but from knowing how to use both in harmony. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other civilizations began to reconsider their definitions of intelligence and advancement, as stories spread of the primitive species that had defeated an imperial fleet, not with superior technology, but with the simple wisdom of knowing when not to use technology at all. The end.